Will Smith is in a whole collection of movies with memorable vehicles, but I've been wanting to do a video about autonomous vehicles for a while now, and that desire really kicked up a notch when I was writing the Logan video and ended up writing 3 whole pages just for the auto trucks alone, though that's not what we'll talk about in this video. And then that desire magnified a bit more after rewatching Spider-Man 2 for last week's episode about the Puch Newport. In Spider-Man, we come to learn in later viewings that Otto remains good and is just a puppet played by the villainous mechanical appendages. In Logan, the auto trucks were again used for nefarious purposes, so why have autonomous vehicles and artificial intelligence come to be synonymous with villainy? We'll get to the auto trucks in the future, and gosh, I hope I'll still have it in me to go through all of Will Smith's automotive sidekicks, because honestly, how many actors have a car made just for them in one movie, like the Audi RSQ Concept of iRobot, and that same vehicle follows them to another movie in another medium for another audience? I'm talking about the Audi RSQ e-tron of Spies in Disguise, which still maintains the same naming convention without really any of the design similarities. iRobot was Audi's first partnership with a production studio to design and build out a vehicle solely for a movie. Spies in Disguise was another first time for Audi, this time being the first partnership with an animated movie. The Audi RSQ and e-tron variant were both designed in-house at Audi, the first coming from Julian Honig and the e-tron coming from Jan Poliak. Anyway, with it being such a special video for me, let me provide a layout of how this video will go. I'm going to slip into some of my old jargon, and hopefully this video layout helps you follow along. First, we're going to talk about what a robot is, since the entire premise of iRobot is how law enforcement should police robots. Then we're going to define automation and autonomy and explain their differences. I'm going to be as quick as I possibly can while also being as thorough as I want to be. And we'll finish it up like I usually do with a breakdown of the vehicle. In this case, the Audi RSQ's fictitious mechanical specs and the proposed autonomous sensor suite. And so, what is a robot? This video, and the series really, is all about perception, specifically how entertainment media, movies, TV, video games, either responsibly or irresponsibly present an idea to the general audience, and sometimes that's at a hypocritical deficit. In iRobot, you have Spooner, played by Will Smith, with a developed prejudice against robots, but every robot he appears to have a prejudice against are the humanoid kind. Autonomous vehicles are robots too, and while he often drives manually, he still utilizes the autonomous mode of the Audi RSQ. Audi's designer, Julian Honig, obviously wasn't tasked with building a robot. No autonomous vehicle designer ever begins their thumbnail sketches thinking it will look like an astromech or protocol droid. One of Julian's primary objectives was to design the RSQ in such a way that any audience member who cared about general automotive design could distinguish an Audi from the pack based on its design language. So he maintained the trapezoidal grille shape and a presentation of the multimedia interface that was introduced to the Audi brand in 2001. Many of the proportions are very similar too, and I think without the 4 rings, a general car enthusiast could distinguish an Audi from that vehicle's design. Now let's talk about designing a robot. Robotic solutions, automated solutions, mechanical solutions, whatever you want to call them, they are designed for a specific task. Jeremy Fielding, who is an incredibly succinct engineer and YouTuber, has a lot of tips and advice for designing a product or process. Clear and presentable engineers are hard to find among the more introverted and reserved population of mechanical design engineers, and so having Jeremy as a resource is just amazing. Among his wealth of knowledge, I'm going to extract a soundbite about well-written or poorly written design briefs. Real quick, a design brief is something a designer/engineer receives at the beginning of a project that lists the intended outcome as well as restrictions to the design.
By far the most important first step when engineering a solution is to define the problem well. Defining the problem can be tricky, especially since the problem often also has a solution already baked into it. Let me give you an example. Coworkers, salesmen, your boss, whoever comes to you and they say, "We need to engineer a more efficient lawnmower." I'm going to ask you the same question without the solution baked in. We need to shorten so many acres of grass in so many minutes. One of these scenarios gives you a very narrow window of things that you're trying to accomplish. The other one gives you way more options in terms of how you might go about shortening the grass.
Based on this advice, in no circumstance whatsoever would a humanoid robot deliver a specific task for in-home use. In-home use is the caveat where this video's scope lies. Of course, there are instances where humanoid robots are critical for either a training circumstance or maybe with Hyundai Mobility and Boston Dynamics Atlas robot where maybe they are being developed for combat duty. Even then, it's a poor use. When designing a robot like an autonomous vehicle, those design briefs require sensor location, sensor field of vision, computer locations, harness paths, and because of all these various design constraints, we see autonomous vehicles that look like cars with headgear. Robotics is so much more than arms and limbs and an expressive face. Robotics is about finding the simplest solution to a repeated problem or series of problems. If a problem repeats itself over and over again, like, say, not enough laundry detergent for example, then the solution is to automate a repeatable outcome for the specific use case. Automation is the solution for those repeated problems. When the problem is wasted electricity from drying clothes too long, engineers add automated sensors which detect moisture and hence cut off the machine from excessive drying. Autonomy is the freedom for an automated solution to determine the outcome. There are two ways you can look at this. One is wrong and one is right, so hopefully I can clear the air. In one, the programmer designates the rule system with an answer for every imaginable problem. For a washer and dryer system, there is still a lot of human input. In newer generation machines, washers can detect load size, water levels, and distributed weight. There are several problems that could occur in the laundry washing process. You could have too much weight at the rim of the washing unit, causing excessive centripetal force which would wear on the motor drive unit. You could have too much or too little detergent for the amount of clothes in the wash. You could have an issue draining the soiled water. In each of these cases, there are automated solutions. Too much centripetal force will cause the washer to shut down and prompt the user to redistribute the weight. New washers will disperse specific soap amounts based on the size of the laundry load, or it will prompt the user to add more detergent. If there is an issue draining soiled water, then the wash unit will shut off and prompt the user to check the drainage. For each known issue, there is an answer, and so this is an automated solution, not autonomous. An autonomous system is a product or service that might undergo circumstances for which the engineers don't have an answer pre-programmed into the robot or machine. Autonomous vehicles will undergo scenarios that are unique on any given day, not for lack of effort on the part of the engineer, who absolutely tries to program solutions for every situation, but because no science has been able to predict human behavior 100% of the time. A pedestrian might walk out at the last minute. A cyclist might swerve out of the way of a falling tree branch. In these scenarios, the artificial intelligence within the autonomous system is trained to respond to a multitude of similar scenarios so that it can predict the best possible outcome for any given solution. Dr. Octavius's tentacles were trained to contain against a limited number of energy spikes, solar flares. The training would allow them to contain an exponentially greater number of containment breaches. That was the sole purpose behind the artificial intelligence in each of the 4 tentacles. The claw would detect an anomaly or containment breach and work its way to contain it. This is a basic level artificial intelligence structure. Anyway, because of this autonomy, the tentacle's ability to decide the best outcome to a problem, there's a fear for whether they will make the right decision when benefited by human hindsight.
If the artificial intelligence in the arms is as advanced as you suggest, couldn't that make you vulnerable to them?
And so many autonomous solutions have the manual oversight of human controls or voice command and so on, just like the Audi RSQ's manual override to drive the car itself after autonomous mode.
It means I maintain control of these arms, instead of them controlling me. And now on to the main event. Give me the blue light, Rosie.
As I said way early in the video, the RSQ was Audi's first attempt ever to partner with a production studio and design a completely new vehicle for filming. Because of this, we don't know a whole lot, but what we will talk about are the known mechanical specs of the vehicle, and since it's a semi-autonomous vehicle as well, we're going to look at the perceived sensor suite that it has. Beginning with the specs of the vehicle, we can look a couple of places. We actually have the engine and transmission information provided by Audi during the film's release window. This is something wildly out of the ordinary. Many concept vehicles, even film vehicles in a CGI-enhanced world, don't have a drivetrain. But the RSQ has the benefit of being based almost entirely on a concept vehicle that already had so much development done. The Audi Le Mans Quattro was released in 2001 as a showroom concept car. The Le Mans Quattro would end up going to production with the naming convention changed in honor of an Audi vehicle that had won the 24 Hours of Le Mans 5 times, the R8 LMP race car. Having a vehicle with so much groundwork laid in 2001 leads to the benefit of provided vehicle specs. The Audi Le Mans Quattro of 2001 was built with a 5.0-liter dual overhead camshaft, twin turbocharged TFSI V10. with a 6-speed automated manual transmission. Demystifying it for the film enthusiast and breaking it down, each side of the engine had 5 cylinders, with the 10 total in a V-shaped configuration combusting an air-to-fuel mixture of nearly 5.0 liters, being combusted every full revolution of the engine. Simplified further, imagine nearly 1.5 gallons of air-fuel mixture being lit ablaze. That would result in a huge explosion. Contained within the engine cylinder's walls, that explosion is pressing against the piston and spinning the drivetrain. With a turbocharger on either side of the engine, those parts are pumping more air into the engine cylinder, increasing the amounts of power output. TFSI is Audi's version of direct fuel injection, which seems like a common solution these days but needed designations like FSI and TFSI back in the early 2000s. All this to say that the concept vehicle was able to grab numbers like 602 horsepower, 553 pound-feet of torque, and a 0 to 60 time in 3.7 seconds, with a top speed of 214 miles per hour. While that acceleration time has been shaved down over the years within Audi, nearly every number listed is competing at the top end of everything else in Audi's current lineup. For the RSQ nearly 3 years later, they changed up their naming conventions and housed a 5.0-liter twin turbocharged FSI V10 engine with a 6-speed automatic transmission.
Different, but not really.
To compare with the top end today, the Audi e-tron GT's claimed specs are 637 horsepower at peak performance and 612 pound-feet of torque, with a 0.6 second approximate faster 0 to 60 mile per hour acceleration time at 3.1 seconds. Will Smith had something in his garage in 2004 that could compete with the likes of Tony Stark today. Before moving on to the supposed autonomous capability, we should take a brief moment to go over the spherical wheels of every vehicle shown in this robotically assisted future. For many real-life spherical wheel vehicles, they are driven in isolated conditions. It's either one wheel driving across unknown terrain, BB-8 is a well-known example of this, or it's multiple wheels in a controlled location like a warehouse. Warehouses are actually some of the best environments for testing autonomous vehicles since they have flat, concrete floors and paintable lanes. Anyway, something like BB-8 works because you are moving something very small, the top of the head. Why this is an issue is the whole braking scenario of a 1-ton or 2-ton vehicle. BB-8 has something called Omni wheels that rotate the spherical wheel, and when stopping, they do this opposite direction driving so that there is this slingshot effect. BB-8 is traveling forward and then they bounce back before coming to a complete stop. Cars don't have the luxury of doing that. Most accidents today can be prevented by applying brakes just a little bit sooner. Many advanced driver assistance systems programs are sensing events when braking is required earlier and telling the car to brake sooner. If you complicate the process of stopping, adding multiple axes for example, then that's not something the NHTSA is going to let fly, though they've let Tesla fly under the radar for years without raising a stink. If your design goal is to create a drive system that allows multiple directions of driving and braking, then you can cut out the BB-8 middleman and just install Omni wheels on your drive axles. The diagonally rotating wheels can have the traditional brakes at the axle, and with many of the lateral adjustments happening at lower speeds, individual brakes on the Omni wheel tread, which are already locked in order to drive traditionally, can be applied if there are lateral case emergencies. I'm not a big fan of spherical wheels in general. They're a cool concept, but there are too many unknowns in a system that you purposefully introduce complexity into just to get the side-to-side micro adjustment. GM's crab walk on the GMC Hummer EV handles many of the situations where spherical wheels would be required in a much more realistic and elegant way. And even those situations are extremely rare. It's a minor luxury that too many vehicles have in this movie for it to be believable. James Brutton has a really engaging video about the practicality of spherical wheels, and you should check it out in order to make your own judgment. Now let's take a look at the sensor suite, but there's really nothing to look at. There aren't any side view mirrors, so the natural progression there is that the car has cameras pointing backward at the blind spot so that the driver and autonomous system can see. Audi has started doing that in the Audi e-tron, albeit with side view camera mirrors. The headlights at the front could be hiding more sensors, but you have limited range field of vision for something like that, so they're either camera, radar, ultrasonic sensors, or infrared emitters. A lot of AV people will feel gross about this, but I'm trying to simplify for the film enthusiast as much as I can. What the headlight location can offer is a location where sensors can see in one direction. so a sensor that can see within a given angle, LiDAR, isn't really an option in the headlights. Anyway, there's just not anything on the exterior to help me determine what is and isn't on the RSQ. There's no LiDAR. Even if we extrapolate what Luminar is doing with their Hydra, Iris, and any future developed products, there's just no way that a LiDAR component can integrate so seamlessly into a vehicle by 2035. Though, I'm happy to see Luminar or any other LiDAR company to prove me wrong. The last opportunity for ADAS sensors, many ultrasonic sensors are hidden under hider caps at the bumper of many vehicles today. They detect a lot of the cross traffic and blind spot warning systems, so if you go to move into an occupied space, the driver will hear a beeping noise. But the RSQ doesn't have those either. I can't imagine Julian Hoenig was influenced by any advancements in the AV world during 2004. Granted, those developments were seen in the DARPA Grand Challenge and coalesced to big, bulking hardware units all around the vehicle, but it would have been nice to see what an automotive designer envisioned for the future of autonomous vehicles. This car is incredibly confusing if you include factors like autonomy and competing visions of what robotics is. Asking the question, is this the right vehicle for the character, has so many things to consider. For one, it doesn't make sense for a technophobic detective that just re-entered the law enforcement workforce to have a semi-autonomous robot at his fingertips. But if we look away from the intended design and just look at what it could actually do, it makes sense for that same technophobic detective to have a vehicle on the lower end of autonomous capability. There's just no way to clearly answer whether this car was right for Spooner. However, without a doubt, this is one of the best interpretations of a near-future vehicle that Hollywood has ever produced. Even with the Big Brother vibe of Vicky's oversight, I am excited for this semi-autonomous future. If you made it this far, I think that deserves a like and subscribe, but I'm not in control of you. Vicky is. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.